Erin founded the company, and it's pretty innovative. It acquires data from stormwater and wastewater infrastructure so you can identify, track, and predict stormwater pollution, flooding, and sea level rise in real time. So I think you're going to love hearing what Erin has to say, and she's going to be taking it from here. Erin Rothman.
Thank you. So I think if I don't stop, I'm done in 8 minutes. So we can keep it to no questions, and I can go real fast, and then we can drink. Otherwise, I'll try to slow it down a little bit. But as Shelley said, I am the CEO and co-founder of Storm Sensor, and we have created a high-resolution sensor network that is designed to transform the stormwater and wastewater infrastructure industries from discrete sampling or no sampling to continuous comprehensive monitoring. So basically, we're getting lots of data for pipes for cheap, so we can identify, track, predict, and prevent stormwater pollution, flooding, and sea level rise. So, yes, it's very difficult to see. One of the things that we deal with as a startup, starting this whole project, or project company, we initially started working with private companies working on stormwater compliance. As we talked to our customers and started working with different municipalities and understanding what the needs were, we realized that the application of this could be much broader on an infrastructure level, which brings us into B2G or into government sales. However, as you guys have all discussed throughout the day, the process can be quite confusing. There are a lot of conflicting issues associated with this, so we started doing some research into how we could move this along a little bit faster, not just for our needs, because as a startup, we have to get product out there fast, we have to bring revenue out in quickly, and if we don't do that, we can't get in the investors, which means we can't solve the problem. So working with cities, we did a bunch of research on our end. We worked with a group called Net Impact Berkeley. It's an undergraduate nonprofit program that works with impact-oriented startups. They did a lot of research for individual cities identifying those thresholds that we were talking about, the $10,000 for the federal government. They range for local governments. I believe Vancouver, BC is $75,000. New Orleans is $1,000. I don't know if that says anything. But understanding that and what people have to work with, talking with the cities themselves and working with those teams, the second question they ask after how quickly can we get these out in the field is, now how do we pay you? So it's not just us who had to do the research. A lot of times the people in the cities also don't know exactly what process they need to follow or can follow. So understanding those criteria in advance. And then also another thing that we've done is worked with other consultants and service providers who already have contracts in place with the city, kind of like on call. We can work directly with them. All the city has to do, or a government agency has to do, is call them, say, hey, we're going to implement this contract, and you just have to use Storm Sensor for this particular project. So, like I said, we have to move quickly, and a lot of times the problems that we're trying to solve are pretty high risk. The one that I'm going to talk to you about specifically is with Jersey City. So they are one of 39 other cities in the United States who are under federal consent decree to stop their combined sewer overflows. And I know everyone wants to learn about sewers today. So a combined sewer overflow is when you have a stormwater system and a sewer sanitary system combined. And when it rains, those systems literally overflow, and we're discharging sanitary sewer into our lakes, rivers, streams, bays, oceans. It's disgusting. So many of these, we've got about 700 communities in the United States who have these systems. Like I said, 39 are under federal consent decree. The EPA estimates it's going to cost about $31 billion to solve this problem. But they can't solve the problem if they don't know why it's happening, where it's happening, and where the biggest issues are. So we ended up working with Jersey City through their innovation team. And this was through the Bloomberg Philanthropic Group, I believe. What they do, it's basically a team of people. They act as an in-house consultant almost to the city. And they work with the citizens within the community as well as different agencies to help prioritize their biggest issues and use that to basically support the communities themselves, also to support entrepreneurs, and then solve these problems relatively quickly. Each year they have a new initiative. Last year, 2017, was the year of water. And when they were going through this as part of their sustainability evaluation, they realized that stormwater and these combined sewer overflows were their number one problem that they had to solve, and they didn't have the tools to do that. So in August of last year, we received a call, or an email rather, from Brian Platt at Jersey City, and he said that we need your sensors, please help us. That's all I got. So I called him and ended up talking to him, the rest of his innovation team, as well as the Jersey City Municipal Utility Authority. So keeping in mind that for most of the projects that we work on, it's not just a single department within the city that we're working with. It's both the guys up in the mayor's office, the white collar, and then it's the guys who are out in the field actually in the sewers. They're the ones who are using the data, whereas the people who are in the innovation group, they love the data, they don't understand it, so we have to present it differently. But they have the bigger vision, and there are guys that have to do the work. So making sure that we can work with both sides of the table on that is really important for us. And we had a phenomenal time, really. So what they sent us was a map, and they sent us hundreds of pages of data that was in a horrible PDF format because they didn't, of course, have this in Excel. So we retabulated the data, identified priority locations for them. They have 25 CSOs that discharge to the Hudson River and the Hackensack River. And then we kind of worked with the MUA to identify the easiest high priority locations that we could work with, and ended up deploying 6 sensors at priorities number 3 and 4 in the Hackensack River. So, like I said, all these CSOs, and then we were able to, for the pilot phase of this, target a very specific area with some very specific objectives. We wanted to make sure that we could monitor the flow at the discharge points, so under identifying when a CSO occurred. We looked at this on a project-based scale while working with the innovation group and the city to understand how we could ultimately apply this on a sewer shed scale. We're looking at baseline conditions. So the Hackensack River is tidal, so just because temperature and depth and flow increase doesn't mean that you have a CSO. That could just be high tide. So establishing those baseline conditions for a given site, and then being able to apply any anomalies within those conditions beyond this project over the longer term to things like green infrastructure, gray infrastructure improvements, BMPs, other ways to address the issue. And then obviously detecting problems, so when these CSOs occur, also looking at slowing velocities, so for maintenance issues, understanding how that all applies. You guys probably don't care about this, but the point is, we had very clear objectives in the short term, very clear objectives in the long term, and working through the entire process with them. So for the first time ever, they were actually able to demonstrate when these CSOs were occurring. What typically happens for most cities, they model when the CSOs are occurring, so they're getting fined for data that they're pretty sure might be real, and now we can actually identify when this is real and when it's happening. I'm a scientist, so I like our charts that show when this happens. But they really enjoyed that. It's very clear. We're working with the innovation group now to make sure that the data is accessible and understandable, not just to the guys in the field, but also to the citizens of Jersey City and the communities that they work within. So basically, we have the proven solution for a very low cost, demonstrated that we can provide the valuable data, and it's an innovative approach to solving a decades-old problem that many cities across the country are trying to deal with. So as far as preliminary approval, like I said, we've been working through this whole process over longer term. This week or next, we should know how that's heading. And we're also working with them on a number of different smart infrastructure and smart city grant opportunities that they can use to apply this over a larger area. So as far as things that we learned, both working with Jersey City and also working with the City of Seattle and a number of other municipalities, is a lot of times, if you go in and say, I can solve all of your city's problems, and that's great, but no one really wants, I mean, that's impossible. So if you identify a very specific situation that you would like to see resolved, and you can work with someone it's an advocate for the project on both sides, and help getting that through, because most people have that threshold that they can work within, and some level of discretionary spending depending on the department and depending on the government agency. And then, like I said, different threshold criteria. So the federal government's the 10,000, and then cities are variable. So like King County in Seattle is 20,000, City of Seattle is 50,000. Working again between different groups, because a lot of times there's the purchasing, the procurement person, and that's not necessarily the person who's going to be using the technology that you're developing, so it has to work for both parties, and you have to be able to communicate that across an entire group to make sure that you're all working together for the same solution. And also understanding from a startup's perspective, we found a lot of things that we are going to fix as a result of this pilot, but we're working very closely with the cities and our customers right now to implement those changes, replace the sensors, and get better data for them. So as long as we're providing data and value to you, that's all we really want to do, and to solve the problems that we're all identifying. And I think working as a team to understand that both sides can get benefit out of this is really, really positive. So in summary, keeping an open mind, focusing on our customers' needs, and being willing to work together means that with all of the things that are happening in the world, we can change it one step at a time. And it might seem incredibly overwhelming and daunting, but every person has a dream and every person has a goal, and finding that person and matching them with the technology and the solutions allows us to take a step in the right direction. So that is all I have. I think I made it in 5 minutes. Yes, Raj.
So, in terms of you breaking into government, I'm just curious, what's your advice to government procurement professionals when they're looking at this is I think a good case study in that you're talking about tech solutions for all sorts of problems, right?
Right.
And what's your advice, I guess, to government procurement professionals as well as others in terms of when they're looking at companies like yourselves, and what should they do differently?
Yeah, looking for people like us. It's a different mindset. So one of the reasons that we can't or don't respond to RFPs is that there's often a very specific qualifications section. We don't meet that as a company. We don't have 10 years or 20 years of sensor experience. So that's where keeping an open mind, understanding that there are a lot of, I'm not speaking of myself, but other brilliant people in this world who are trying to solve these problems that don't necessarily fit every checkbox. So adding some flexibility, understanding that there are people really trying to do this would be phenomenal. Getting a clear understanding when you're launching a project of what the contracting limitations are, and being clear about that on the outset is helpful, because we do a lot of research. I know a lot of other companies that we've talked to have done a lot of research. And it's always a surprise a lot of times on the city side. The people that we've worked with really don't know the best way to go about doing a project like this. So yeah, being flexible on the quals, understanding the contracting opportunities available to you, and having, in many cases, a specific project or a specific problem that you want solved, we can design that solution for you. Also, if you keep it small and relatively low cost, then it's a relatively low risk as far as expenses.
Other questions?
Oh, sorry.
So did you enter into a contract with the city of New Jersey?
Yes.
I mean, so based on what their thresholds were, you were able to?
Exactly.
Okay.
So we sent them a proposal, and they approved it verbally, and I believe 8 months later, we got the purchase order. So it was in the purchasing for a great period of time, but we were able to work through that.
Peter Gant, City of Los Angeles. I just wanted to say that what you had to say was the most cogent presentation of the day. I've been involved in purchasing technology, and as far as I'm concerned, the purchasing function serves me. I'm not a purchaser per se.
Right.
And starting with a pilot, proving that pilot, getting to the right level in the government where they recognize the problem, it's right on. And I just want to thank you for a great presentation.
Thank you.